You don't make someone miss you by clinging tighter. You don't make them miss you by begging for their attention, blowing up their phone, or constantly reminding them of your existence. That's desperation. That's insecurity. And the truth is, nothing kills attraction faster than the scent of neediness. If you want someone to feel your absence deep in their bones, you have to flip the script. You have to stop thinking like the one who's trying to be remembered and start living like the one who is impossible to forget. Think about it. Why do certain people from your past still haunt your thoughts even years later? It's not because they tried harder to stay in your life. It's because they left behind an impression you can't replicate with anyone else. They didn't chase, they didn't cling, they didn't beg. They walked away carrying an aura of confidence, of self-worth, of mystery. That's what you need to embody if you want a woman to miss you when you're gone. Not the man who needs her validation to breathe, but the man who breathes powerfully on his own. Here's the bitter truth most men don't want to face right now. The way you behave makes you easy to forget, and if you're easy to forget, you'll never be missed. The texts you send, the constant reassurance you seek, the way you orbit around her world like a satellite, it all screams weakness. Women don't miss weakness, they miss strength, they miss energy that elevated them, that challenged them, that made them feel alive. If all you ever gave was comfort, if all you ever did was nod along and make things easy, then when you leave, what is there to miss? Nothing but convenience, and convenience is replaceable. Stop believing the lie that constant presence creates loyalty. It doesn't. Constant presence creates boredom. Familiarity makes people take you for granted. If you're always available, you become background noise, and nobody misses background noise when it's gone. They only notice silence when it interrupts music that stirred their emotions. You need to be that music. You need to be that disruption. You need to leave behind a gap so sharp it feels like a wound. That's the only way anyone misses you, by feeling the void of something they can't refill with just anyone else. Another brutal realization: most of the time, the reason she won't miss you is because you gave away all of your value too soon. You gave her constant attention before she had the chance to earn it. You dropped your entire world in her lap before she invested in you. You stripped away mystery, stripped away tension, stripped away the chase. You thought love meant giving her everything, but giving everything at once leaves nothing for her to crave. Missing only happens when desire is left unsatisfied. If she has it all on demand, why would she long for you when you're not there? She won't. She'll just move on to the next distraction. You need to accept this. Missing is born from scarcity. If water is everywhere, no one thinks about it. If it suddenly disappears, it becomes the most valuable thing in the world. That's the psychology you need to understand. Stop being water from the tap. Start being the rare fountain that no one else can find. Then when you walk away, she won't just notice it, she'll feel it in every quiet moment, in every dull conversation, in every night she lies awake realizing something is missing and she can't name it. That's the power of leaving an imprint instead of dumping endless availability. The shift starts with you, not with her, not with some strategy to manipulate feelings. It starts with deciding to carry yourself like a man who doesn't need to be remembered, but naturally is. When you have a life so full, when your presence is so sharp, so authentic, so unshakable, then when you're gone, the space you leave behind feels massive. That's when she misses you. Not because you begged her to, not because you forced it, but because she can't avoid it. And the cruel truth is, until you change, she won't miss you. She'll forget you. She'll replace you. She'll barely even notice when you're gone. That's the consequence of living as an ordinary man, always available, always chasing, always proving. The moment you stop and finally step into the kind of presence that's rare, that's bold, that's unapologetically scarce, you become unforgettable. And unforgettable is the only thing that ever gets missed. If your presence feels common, your absence will feel irrelevant. That's the reality no one wants to swallow. People only miss what feels rare, what feels difficult to replace. And the harsh truth is, most men live and act in ways that make them forgettable. You blend in with every other guy because you've never built yourself into someone unique. You think simply being there, showing up, and being nice is enough to leave a mark. It isn't. Being nice doesn't make you missed. Being ordinary doesn't make you unforgettable. It makes you background static in her life. The world is overflowing with men who bring nothing new. Men who fold under pressure, men who never challenge, men who confuse attention with value. If you fall into that category, you don't stand out. You're just another face, another number, another memory that fades before the door even closes behind you. And when you leave, she won't feel your absence. She'll feel relief. She'll feel nothing, because you gave her nothing worth holding on to in the first place. Here's the part that stings. Most of you think you're special simply because you showed up. But what did you actually bring? Did you spark emotion? Did you challenge her? Did you make her see herself in a new way? Or did you just orbit her like a planet around the sun, hoping she'd notice your devotion? Devotion without impact is worthless. Loyalty without presence is meaningless. If the experience of being with you is the same as being with anyone else, why would she long for you once you're gone? She won't. She'll move on like nothing happened. It's not about being rich or tall or the funniest guy in the room. That's where most men get lost. It's not about what you can buy her or how many compliments you throw her way. Those things fade fast. What cuts deep, what gets remembered, is the feeling you create when you're around. That emotional fingerprint. That is what separates a man from the rest. And the brutal truth is, if your presence doesn't leave an emotional mark, your absence will never matter. Think about the people you miss in your own life. The ones you can't shake off no matter how much time passes. It's never the ones who were always predictable. It's never the ones who never challenged you. It's the ones who stirred something in you, good or bad. They made you feel alive, unsettled, awake. That's why they haunt you. That's why their absence still cuts. Because they weren't replaceable. They brought something into your life that no one else has since. That's the same standard you're being judged by right now. If you can't deliver that kind of presence, don't expect anyone to miss you. Here's the mistake you've been making. You've been confusing effort with impact. You think just because you gave a lot of time, a lot of attention, a lot of energy, that automatically makes you valuable. Wrong. Value isn't about how much you give. It's about how much your presence transforms the experience of someone else's life. You could spend years giving everything to someone, but if you never shift how they feel, how they think, or how they see the world, then the second you're gone, you'll vanish from their mind like smoke. That's the part that most men never face. Effort without impact is invisible, and invisible men are never missed. Being missed requires one thing, irreplaceability, and you don't get that by copying what every other guy does. You don't get it by being predictable. You don't get it by flooding her with attention she never had to earn. You get it by creating a version of yourself that stands on a level so rare that when you're not there, there's a hole that no one else can fill. That's when absence stings. That's when silence echoes. That's when she realizes, damn, he's not here, and no one else can match that. The painful reality is that most men will never reach this level because they're too addicted to comfort. They'd rather be safe, agreeable, easy, but safe men don't get remembered. Easy men don't get missed. It's the man who refuses to be common, who refuses to bend to every demand, who carries himself with purpose and a life bigger than her. That's the man who can vanish and still stay alive in her thoughts. That's the man who creates the sting of absence. Stop blending in, stop being replaceable, stop handing out your presence like it costs nothing. If you want to be missed, your presence has to matter. And if it doesn't, your absence never will. Every time you beg, every time you over-explain yourself, every time you look for reassurance in her eyes, you destroy the very attraction you're trying to build. You think you're showing love. You think you're proving loyalty. But what you're really proving is weakness. And weakness is never missed. It's erased, forgotten, replaced. Neediness is a repellent so strong it can turn desire into disgust. That's the truth no one wants to admit, but you've felt it yourself. When someone constantly demands your attention, when they won't let you breathe without validation, you don't feel closer to them, you feel trapped. And when they're gone, you don't miss them, you feel free. That's exactly how she feels when you operate from need instead of strength. You need to understand something about human nature. We are drawn to what we respect, not to what we pity. And when you show up begging for attention, you think you're proving how much you care, but what you're really proving is how little you value yourself. If you can't stand on your own, if your confidence collapses the moment she pulls back, you're teaching her one thing, that you are not the kind of man she can look up to. You're the kind of man who bends, who cracks, who grovels, and no one ever longs for a groveler. They only remember the ones who held their ground. Here's the brutal truth. Approval-seeking doesn't make her think, he loves me so much. It makes her think, he needs me more than I need him. And the second that imbalance is clear, attraction dies. Doesn't fade slowly, it collapses, because no woman ever misses the man who orbits her like a lost satellite. She misses the man who stood firmly in his own gravity, the man she had to earn, the man who never begged for her validation because his own self-respect was already enough. Think about the way you text. Do you fire off messages just to get a reply? Do you explain yourself endlessly to avoid conflict? Do you panic when she doesn't respond right away? Every one of those actions screams, "I don't believe I'm enough." And whether she says it or not, she feels it. That energy smothers her. It suffocates her attraction. And here's the sting. You're not doing it because you care about her. You're doing it because you're terrified of losing her. That fear poisons everything. It makes you smaller. It makes you forgettable. And when you finally disappear, she won't feel emptiness. She'll feel relief from the weight of your insecurity. Approval seeking is manipulation in disguise. You're not giving out compliments or chasing after her attention because you're overflowing with genuine love. You're doing it because you're starving for reassurance. And she can feel the hunger in every move you make. No one longs for hunger. No one misses desperation. They miss strength. They miss calm confidence. They miss the presence of someone who didn't need them to validate his worth. This is the shift you need to make. You have to stop looking at her as the judge of your value. You have to stop acting like every look, every text, every word out of her mouth defines whether you matter. The second you put her in that position, you've already lost. Because the moment she feels like she owns your self-esteem, she stops respecting you. And when respect dies, attraction dies. And when attraction dies, missing you is impossible. You've got to rewire your mind. Stop seeing her attention as oxygen. Stop seeing her approval as survival. You need to be able to breathe without her. You need to be able to stand tall when she withdraws. Because when you do that, you flip the script. Suddenly, you're not the one chasing her approval. She's the one chasing your validation. She's the one wondering why you're so unshaken, why you don't crumble without her. That's the seed of missing. Not the man who begged, not the man who pleaded, but the man who remained solid when she pulled away. Ask yourself this. Would you miss someone who begged you constantly? Would you miss someone who made you feel smothered, drained, exhausted with their need for validation? No, you wouldn't. You'd feel lighter when they were gone. You'd feel free. That's what you've been creating in her mind. That's why she doesn't long for you when you leave. She doesn't see your absence as a loss. She sees it as a release. The harshest truth you need to face is this. Until you kill your need for approval, you will never be missed. You'll be forgotten. Because no one misses weakness. No one misses insecurity. No one misses the man who lived his life waiting for permission to feel worthy. Only when you strip away the begging, the chasing, the over-explaining, can you finally build the kind of presence that burns into her memory. And only then will your absence hurt. If your entire world revolves around her, she will never miss you. She won't even feel your absence. She'll feel relief. And that's the bitter pill most men refuse to swallow. You've built your life around her like she's the sun and you're the orbiting planet. Every decision, every action, every ounce of your energy revolves around her. That doesn't make you magnetic. It makes you suffocating. It doesn't make you irresistible. It makes you disposable. Because the second you put her at the center of your life, you've erased yourself. You've stopped being a man worth remembering. You need to understand this. No one longs for something they feel trapped by. If she feels like your happiness depends on her, she won't crave your presence. She'll avoid it. And when you leave, she won't be counting the hours until you come back. She'll be breathing a sigh of relief that she doesn't have to carry the burden of your empty life anymore. That's the cruel reality. You think devotion equals love, but devotion without self-respect equals weakness. And weakness is never missed. A man without a life is invisible. That's why so many of you are forgotten the moment you walk away. You've got nothing going on outside of her. No purpose, no vision, no fire. And you wonder why she doesn't think about you when you're gone. What's there to think about? What's there to miss? If she's your whole world, you've already proven you're not strong enough to stand in your own. And no one ever aches for the man who collapsed without them. The men who are truly missed are the ones who carry a life so magnetic, so alive, that being in their world feels like a privilege. When he leaves, he takes that energy with him. He takes the challenge, the excitement, the gravity that pulled her in. That's when absence stings. Not because he begged her to care, but because he gave her a taste of something bigger than her, something she can't replicate when he's not around. That's the difference between being unforgettable and being invisible. Here's the part that cuts deep. The reason she doesn't miss you is because you had nothing outside of her to begin with. You handed her all your time, all your attention, all your focus, like you were sacrificing yourself at an altar. You thought that kind of obsession would make her feel valued. It didn't. It made her feel trapped. It made her feel bored. It made her take you for granted. And the truth is, the more of yourself you give away without keeping anything for you, the less valuable you become. If you want to be missed, you need to build a life so full that stepping out of it feels like losing oxygen. You need to have a mission, a drive, a passion that keeps you moving whether she's there or not. You need to be so deeply invested in your own growth, your own empire, your own path that she feels lucky just to be a part of it. Then, when you're gone, she won't just notice your absence. She'll feel the void of being cut off from that fire, from that energy that made her feel alive. Think about the men you remember. Think about the ones who left their mark. They weren't obsessed with you. They weren't desperate to prove themselves. They had their own worlds, their own lives, their own power. And because of that, being near them felt like stepping into something extraordinary. That's why they're unforgettable. That's why they're missed. Because when they left, you didn't just lose a person, you lost access to a world bigger than yours. That's the standard you need to live by. Stop pouring every ounce of your existence into her. Stop treating her like your only source of meaning. Stop living small and pretending that's love. Real attraction doesn't come from obsession. It comes from independence. It comes from being a man who has so much going on, so much value in himself, that walking away leaves a crater no one else can fill. That's what makes absence powerful. That's what makes someone miss you to the point of madness. So build your body, build your mind, build your money, build your mission. Become the man who doesn't need anyone to complete him, and watch how the dynamic flips. Suddenly, she's not relieved when you leave. She's restless. She's unsettled. She's aware that something rare, something powerful just walked out of the room. That's the feeling you want her to have. That's how you make her miss you. Because here's the truth. No one told you, if you don't have a life without her, you'll never matter with her. Scarcity creates value. That's not just a principle in relationships, it's a principle of life. Anything that's always available gets ignored, overlooked, taken for granted. You don't crave air when you're breathing freely. You don't crave water when the tap is running. You only start aching for it when it's taken away, when the supply is limited, when suddenly you can't get it on demand. That's when desire explodes. And if you want to be missed, you need to stop acting like you're an endless supply of attention, affection, and availability. Because the truth is, if you're always there, you'll never be long for when you're gone. Most men destroy their value by flooding the market with themselves. They're too accessible, too predictable, too eager. They answer every call on the first ring. They reply to every message in seconds. They're always free when she wants them. At first it feels flattering to her, but quickly it becomes suffocating. She knows you'll always be there no matter what. And because of that, your presence stops carrying weight. It becomes cheap. It becomes forgettable. Why would anyone miss something that never felt rare to begin with? They don't. Here's a harsh realization. The reason she doesn't miss you isn't because she's cold-hearted. It's because you trained her not to. You trained her to expect you at her fingertips. You trained her to believe you'd bend, sacrifice, rearrange, and show up at her convenience. You thought that was loyalty, but it was weakness disguised as devotion. And weakness doesn't create longing. Weakness creates boredom. She'll never stay awake at night thinking about a man who made himself a doormat. She'll never ache for the guy who was always on call, always ready to drop everything. She'll just take it for granted until it stops meaning anything at all. Scarcity is what makes people wake up. Scarcity is what makes people realize value. When you step back, when you're not always available, when she suddenly doesn't know where you are or what you're doing, her mind starts working. She starts wondering. She starts replaying. That's when you become present in her thoughts, even in your absence. Not because you demanded attention, but because you created space for her to feel the loss of you. And here's where most men fail. They're terrified of pulling back. They think if they stop pouring out constant attention, she'll forget about them. But the opposite is true. Constant attention numbs desire. Space fuels it. Scarcity builds it. You don't get remembered by being everywhere all the time. You get remembered by being powerful in your presence and then withdrawing, leaving a gap that no one else can fill. That's how you create missing. Look at luxury. Look at things people obsess over. It's never the things you can get easily. It's the things that are rare, hard to find, difficult to replace. Scarcity is what drives obsession. The same principle applies to you. If you give yourself away freely, you're cheap. If you pull back, if you protect your presence, if you move with intention, suddenly you're rare. Suddenly you're valuable. Suddenly you're unforgettable. That's what creates the ache when you're gone. But let's be brutally clear. Scarcity doesn't mean playing childish games. It doesn't mean ignoring her for no reason or ghosting her out of insecurity. That's weak. Scarcity means you actually have a life that keeps you busy. It means you're not always available because you're building, because you're moving, because you're doing things that matter. That's the difference between fake scarcity and real scarcity. One is manipulation, the other is power, and power is what gets missed. You have to ask yourself this: if you disappeared right now, what would she feel? Would she feel emptiness, a void, a gnawing sense that something rare is missing? Or would she feel nothing, maybe even relief, because you'd been flooding her with yourself to the point of exhaustion? That answer will tell you everything about how you've been living. If your absence doesn't sting, it's because your presence never carried weight. The shift you need to make is simple but brutal. Stop making yourself common. Stop being available on demand. Stop training her to take you for granted. Build a life so full, so powerful that your time and energy feel rare. When she has it, she feels lucky. When she loses it, she feels the loss. That's the difference between being forgotten and being missed. That's the difference between being a convenience and being a craving. Because the truth is undeniable. People don't miss what's always there. They miss what feels impossible to replace. Forget the words you say, forget the promises you make, forget the gifts you buy. None of that sticks. What lingers in someone's mind is not the details, it's the emotional fingerprint you leave behind. People don't replay conversations, they replay how you made them feel. And the brutal truth is, most men never leave an imprint. They play it safe. They try to be agreeable, polite, nice, but nice evaporates the second you walk away. It doesn't echo, it doesn't haunt, it doesn't make anyone restless at night. Safe men are forgettable men, and forgettable men are never missed. The men who are truly missed are the ones who carve themselves into memory through emotional impact, not by being perfect, but by being unforgettable. When you stir emotions, whether it's excitement, challenge, tension, or even a touch of unpredictability, you create hooks in her mind that don't let go. That's why some people from your past still live in your head, not because they were flawless, not because they gave you everything, but because they made you feel something so sharp it left a scar. That's the difference between being remembered and being erased. You need to accept this. If you've been easy, predictable, and soft, she won't miss you, because there's nothing to miss. There's no tension, no spark, no high or low. And without those highs and lows, there's nothing for her brain to cling to. Human beings are wired to remember intensity, not neutrality. That's why people can't shake toxic relationships. That's why some exes linger for years. It's not because those relationships were healthy. It's because they were emotionally charged. You don't need to be toxic, but you do need to be powerful enough to leave an imprint. Here's the harsh truth. If you don't challenge her, she won't think about you. If you don't create excitement, she won't feel your absence. If you don't leave her a little uncertain, a little curious, a little stretched out of her comfort zone, then being with you feels like being with anyone else. And when you're gone, she won't replay you in her mind. She'll move on without a thought. What makes someone crave your presence isn't convenience, it's intensity. It's the fire of not knowing exactly what you'll do next. It's the thrill of feeling alive in your energy. It's the contrast between calm and chaos you bring into her world. That emotional cocktail is addictive. And when you're not around, that's what she'll be searching for. That's what makes her miss you. Not because you smothered her with love, but because you gave her a taste of something she can't find anywhere else. Stop being afraid of leaving a mark. Stop trying to smooth every rough edge. Stop acting like neutrality is attractive. It's not. Neutrality is forgettable. Impact is magnetic. And yes, impact comes with risk. Some people won't like you. Some women won't be able to handle you. But that's the point. You don't want everyone to like you. You want the right ones to never forget you. And the only way to do that is to show up with presence so strong, energy so undeniable, that she feels it long after you've left the room. Think about it this way. A spark can be seen for a second, then it's gone. But a fire leaves heat that lingers in the air, even after it's out. That's how your presence should work. The moment you leave, the memory of your energy should still burn in her chest. That's when she replays the moments. That's when she feels the gap. That's when she misses you. Not for what you said, not for what you did, but for how you made her feel. If you've been living as a ghost, quiet, agreeable, invisible, no one is going to chase after you when you're gone. You have to live as a storm. Controlled, yes. Destructive, no. But powerful enough to shake things up, because storms get remembered, calm breezes don't. If you want to be missed, you need to make sure every encounter with you carries energy, depth, presence. That's what makes the silence of your absence deafening. This is the mindset shift. Stop chasing approval, start leaving imprints. Stop trying to be liked, start making her feel alive. Because the truth is simple, words fade, gestures fade, promises fade, but the emotional mark you leave will outlast all of it, and that is what gets missed.